Hello YouTube! Okay, let's just give this a few seconds to allow everyone to arrive. In the meantime, I'm just going to share this link on my Facebook and other social media. So bear with us just a minute and we'll get straight in there. Give it just a minute. As I say, we're just sharing this to, let's see, let's start with an Instagram. Let's get this on Facebook. Let's just get it everywhere. Okay, so that's Facebook done. Okay, now before we start, let's just say, as I mentioned in the video I uploaded, I think it was on Thursday, announcing today's questions and answers, we're really close to 10,000 subscribers. So do me all a favour and take this link, put it on your own social media as well. Just say that we're almost there. We're at, let's see, 9,970 something. Let's see if by all joining together and sharing the link, we can get those missing 20 something subs by the end of the video, and we can celebrate for the 10,000 together live here on YouTube. Now, getting started. First question has come in from my Patreon account, the link to which you can actually find in the description below. Make sure to check it out. To Patreon, I upload behind the scenes content and have a bit more interaction with anyone on there. Now, the question that we've received from there so far, which I promised I would start there, is from a good friend Melv Parker, and he's asked, how do you set up gas models, i.e. how much movement you use and obtain the movement with the radio? Now, I maybe don't follow the usuals for this, because normally whenever I made a new 3D model, what I do is I set everything to the max. I actually fly without dual rates. Personally, dual rates are a thing that can be really good, especially if you're flying a kind of pattern, IMAC or competition. However, for freestyle, flying with music or any kind of 3D, I've never flown with dual rates, because I once saw a video of, I think it was Jason Schulman, many years ago, in which he did a flat spin on low rates. It never came out and the plane came crashing down to earth. And that was, I think it was one of the last TOCs, and it was when he had a really huge plane back in the day when huge planes didn't exist. So that stuck with me. I never wanted to make that mistake. So since then I've never used high and low rates. If it's a particularly unusual model, maybe a particular jet or scale model, I will set up dual rates for the maiden flight. However, once I've found which one of those rates is the most comfortable and starting point, then I'll remove all the others. That way I know that I'm always flying in what is for me the most comfortable setting. However, for 3D planes, like my laser at the moment, that will be taking off with full rates, with a high amount of expo, 60–70% normally, and that'll be it basically. After all aerobatic models do fly, in that sense, to a degree, similar. You can have full rates, and with that kind of expo, you know that you're going to be golden. With regards to setting it up in the radio, that one's just a simple one. Same for any kind of model. You always want to set the servos to the maximum that the radio can do, so 140% each way, or 135 or 155 depending on which radio you're using, and then adjust the length of the servo arm accordingly so that you can use all of it. You don't want to limit it on the radio, otherwise you're losing strength on the actual servo itself. So that's Patreon sorted. I mentioned that I would continue with questions from the comments of Thursday's video for anyone who couldn't make it. So bear with me just a minute, we'll go through those real quick and then we'll get straight into your current questions that I'm seeing loads of in the chat. Let's see what it is we've got here. Okay, question from someone whose title is Music. When's your next video? Well, I guess it's this one. Also, the next one, all being well, will be on Tuesday. What are your thoughts on snap rolls with giant scale sports jets? This is from Bodyworks. Apparently he mentioned it because he did a snap roll with a Rebel, and Facebook guys were like, wait, will you do what? Snaps on a jet. Pretty decent question. Normally you should be fine if it's a sport jet. Snap rolls do add quite a bit of stress to the airframe, particularly on the elevator axis. That's why probably it's rarely seen. Some planes have also had issues with the rudder due to the side force. Normally, if it's a hardcore hardcore sport jet such as Ultimatum, Ultra Flash, one of the Elite Aerosports, Havocs, something like that, you should be fine because they're strong and they're made for being aggressive with. If, however, it's one of the sort of sport but not high energy sport, such as the Rebel, then I would want to be careful to do either not too many or don't be too heavy on the sticks with them. If you want to do it, make it kind of a roll with a little bit of a barrel in it, as opposed to a proper hard sticks to the corners snap roll. Sureka Arunkumar, you need references for your helis. Well, that's one that I can't help you with, but check out the channel of Raquel Bayo, my girlfriend. She's an amazing heli pilot and she can guide anyone with anything to do with helicopters. My Johns, you live in the UK but you have a house in Castalla and fly the Yekla Club. That's where my good friend Jose and Pepe Marco live. You've seen a few videos of them. What is the situation regarding lockdown? This is currently up in the air. It seems that in Yekla you may be able to fly depending on how far you have to travel to get there. In my region here, it seems like we can't go yet, but we're waiting for instructions hopefully really soon. RC Informer, in your experience, what's the perfect first jet? I would have to agree with the one that you've actually recommended here. I think that the Boomerang Elan is a really fun, albeit really ugly, jet. Everyone wants to learn to fly on it because it's the best one to learn on, but then everyone wants to get rid of it as soon as possible, which is a common mistake. I actually learned on that model and we had so much fun with it. We ended up with a 120 in it back in the day, and we would do everything with it. It isn't just good for taking off and landing. It's good for knife edges, rolls, loops, 4-point rolls, pretty much anything you want to do. So it's great, and don't boot it as soon as you can land a jet. IDK, so I don't know. What's the cheapest turbine available? Well, that's the kind of question that cheap turbine can be expensive if it's a particularly cheap one, because if it fails you have an airplane surrounding it, and if it fails at the wrong time then it's not only the turbine that you're losing, it's also the airframe and the equipment around it. So my recommendation there is don't try and find a cheap turbine, try and find a good turbine. I always rely heavily on JetCat. For me they're still the most reliable, I trust them in all of my models, and I would say they're still the #1 option for anyone. If you're looking for a cheap one, well, look at the JetCat, but look at the smaller sizes. The larger the turbine, the more expensive they are. If you go for something like the 80s, they're actually reasonably priced nowadays. And there isn't actually all that much difference in turbine prices anyway. That's it, Stephen Walker. Hope to see 10,000 subscribers. So do I. Hopefully, if everyone's sharing this on their social media, which I hope everyone is, we may reach that target by the end of this video. Fingers crossed. Reckon Boys says the same. Thank you, mate. How big a jet engine must you have to hover with a Sab Lizard? By Gerand Nibak. Well, the guys that I was in Dubai with the SAB team, they were using 120s and they had sufficient power to hover and pull out. I would say that's probably about the right size turbine. Any smaller, it may be able to hover, but the push out is going to be quite critical. Personally, I'm going to be installing a JetCat P130, which is just a smidgen more power, just for that extra safety and reliability. Haj Nabil, your question, your Expo and dual rate, how much do you put for 3D? Well, that one kind of I answered earlier when we were talking about the first question. Average, I start off at 60 to 70% and then vary that according to the model, just so it feels right. Mustafa, you seem to have written in some weird language that I don't know how to read. So I'll just say, hello Mustafa Yilmaz Baisal. Thank you. Let's see. Brian, this one's in Spanish. Hola Martín, soy Brian de Argentina, sigo tus vídeos. Y ya que hoy en día estás haciendo muchos vídeos y tutoriales, me gustaría preguntarte si podrías hacer algún tutorial sobre puesta a punto de un modelo acrobático. Pues mira, es una cosa que podré hacer con el nuevo láser, que lo tengo para estrenar, a ver si podemos salir ya de la situación esta y con suerte podemos ir a volar y tratamos de hacer esa serie de vídeos, que es buena idea, gracias. Let's see, have we got any other fun questions here? You know how to build, don't know how to build but can fly. Well, as long as you've got someone that can do the first half, you can deal with the second half, right? Anyway, that's enough of that. Let's go with today's questions. What kind of things do you all want to know? Let's have a look. Let's check the chat out for the current video. So, how are we doing? Where's the chat? Why is there no chat? Okay, I'm going to have to use the other one. Here we are, that's better. Okay, wow, we've got quite a lot of you here. Okay, Camino Man Air, what do you think of E-Flight? They produce really nice models. They normally always fly really, really well. My only complaint with them is that they are very much orientated to Spectrum radios, which I don't have, which is why I don't normally have any E-Flight products. However, the ones that I have had in the past, and I've put in my own receivers, have always flown really well. Danny Murphy, you prefer the Futaba system. More powerful and more reliable. I won't say that one out loud. Seems like everyone's answering the question for you actually. DSM2, DSMX, DSMX. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Michael Owen Rhodes. Okay, you're going to have to forgive me if I haven't pronounced that correctly. But you ask, how often do I crash? Dude, that's like asking a girl how old she is. You don't ask that kind of thing. Well, normally it depends. I would say that it depends on how you describe a crash. I'll go around the question that way. Do I touch the ground often and do I have minor scrapes and scratches? Very regularly. But that is partly because I have too much fun. Do I count it as a crash? No, definitely not. For me, a crash is when the model cannot be flown again, at the very least the same day. How often does that happen? Fortunately, touch wood, considering how much I fly and the style in which I fly, I would say I don't crash much at all. My last laser, the aerobatic model that I have, lasted me about 1.5 years, as did the one before that. So, yeah, about 1.5 years for a decent crash. Hopefully we can keep that record going. If that's the case, I'd sign the contract straight away. Martin Jans van Rensburg. What is the best remote for flying helis and planes? Well, prior to me swapping over to the Powerbox Core, my preferred radio was always Futaba. On the Futaba 18MZ which I had, I used to fly everything. So turbine models, aerobatic models, foamies, drones, and even 3D helicopters. So I would have to go with Futaba because it has my my confidence that it's not going to fail. It just turn it on and you're good to go. Jim Holland, Martin, you need a shave, mate. Couldn't agree more. That's why I got it sorted for the video. That isn't RC related though. You're not following the conditions. Okay. Aeromodelismo Pasión. Hello, Martin. Hello, it's right back at you. Brian Bezaif. Hello, right back at you as well to Nevada in the USA. Christian from Holland. Hello, Matthew Going. Let's see. Questions. What questions have we got? Danny Murphy. Hello from Phoenix, Arizona. Right back at you. When will you finish and show us the lizard from C3D? Well, all being well, the next video for the lizard is going live on Tuesday at 8 PM, so this same time. In that video we're going to get it pretty much finished. I'm just waiting a couple of final components to get it finished, so I think one more video after that and we'll have it finished, ready to go, and hopefully ready to maiden as soon as we can get back out of the house, out to the flying field, because lockdown is over. Ben Yeep. Martin, I had a problem with my plane yesterday when I was flying. I have a Spectrum receiver and DSMX receiver, but the plane died. Do you know what the problem is? Ben, unfortunately we don't have black boxes. What happened? I don't know. Heart goes out to you for the loss, but there isn't much we can say without looking into it in great detail. Kenrick. Hey Martin, what MKS servos would you recommend for a Rebel Pro without going overkill? Well, the servos that I would probably install would actually be the same ones that I have in my Leonardo, which I don't feel are overkill. I run the 9910 DS, I believe it is. They're about 18-20 kilos off the top of my head. They are particularly quick, but they are made for jets, so they're super precise, and the price is actually quite reasonable as well. It isn't 3 digits, so that's always an advantage. And then the only time that I have slightly stronger servos are for the 2 flaps, which, as they are obviously rather large with large deflections, on those I install MKS HV 777 pluses, which are 40 kilos, and I just know that I'm not going to have any kind of issues when hitting that flap switch. Both flaps are going to come out to the right deflections as programmed on ground without any kind of airflow. Heli Schorsch. Again, you guys are going to have to forgive me for my pronunciation of some of your names. I am doing my best. He's asking, did I ever try to 3D with a heli? Well, yes, I actually had quite a couple of years, I actually stopped about 3 years ago. However, I had about 2 years flying 3D helicopters, pretty well, basically every weekend. I was flying the planes and the helicopters and drones as well. And I wouldn't say that I got to be quite good. However, I could 3D, and the manoeuvres that I did, I could do them particularly low. After all, that's what gets my blood pumping, and that's what I enjoy doing. Raquel does a much better job than I do though. The reason why I gave up though was simply because the time that was needed for me to look after both the helicopters, my planes and the drones got too much. I didn't have time to maintain them all properly, and something had to give. First off, it was the helicopters, and then really it was the drones, which also got put. I still have a few, but don't really use them, and definitely don't really try to compete with them anymore. Much prefer the large aerobatics, which is a whole lot more fun, for me at least. Stephen Ingerfill. Hi, building a Pilot Extra 78 inch with a 40cc DLA. Would you fit ducting to the cowling, and are the slits in the bottom enough for the cooling exit? Personally, I would always recommend baffles. There's no harm ever going to come from installing them. It just means that your engine is always going to get better cooling. So definitely install some kind of baffles in there. With regards to the air exit, however, I'm not particularly a fan of using the holes that are in the fuselage if you're using the standard stock exhaust. The reason being that because of the exhaust that you have, you can simply cut a few holes in your cowl around the hole where the exit exhaust comes out of the plane, and then leave the whole front of the fuselage covered in. Don't even allow any air into the fuselage. That's going to mean that all your electronics are a lot cooler than if you have the air coming in, through and out that way. Matthew going, hello Mr. Pickering, any tips for baffling the laser? Yeah, that one should be an easy one. The plane comes with some two plastic parts which you glue to the inside of the cowl. Job done. Just need to trim it a little bit depending on the size of your particular engine, bro. Sheikh Dawood bin Mahmood. I'm an RC jet flyer, mostly fly jets in Pakistan. I have one question, I hope to answer your question. Question is that you bought a Core radio and now one of your team members told you about Jetty radio is much better than Core. Please guide me. Well, I'm afraid that your team member is, well, mistaken. Jetty is of course a very good system. However, based on what we've already seen that the Core is capable of doing, and the updates which are in process and are already coming out and more are on the way, the Core is going to be untouchable by pretty much any other brand of radio. So no, I believe you did make the right choice when buying the Core over the Jetty. Of course, my personal opinion. Carlos Paioletti, another one from Davy, Lucas and Carlos. Is there a bad point using overkilled ESCs, speed controllers? No, not at all. The bigger the ESC, the less chance that you're going to have of it cutting. Obviously, you're not going to put a 200 amp speed controller on here because it would be too heavy and too bulky. However, if instead of using the 12 amp, 15 amp, which I have on here, I install the 20 amp or 25 amp because it's what I have sitting around in the workshop, there's absolutely no kind of issue or problem there. So go ahead, install that slightly larger ESC and don't worry about it. Let's see, hello from John from South Africa. Good memories from down there, from Walker Bay Radio Flyers. Been there twice, a lot of fun. Ryan Fritz, you're asking what would be a good foam 3D trainer starter kit combo. We actually had this one, I think, in the other week's live video. Really should have looked at the name for it. However, we said it was the best one was probably the RC Factory. Let's have a look if I can just pull that up here real quick so we can get that name this time. They have a really fun kind of high wing trainer type plane which flies really, really well. And it just means that it's made out of the type of foam that these are, so you can use normal cyano. Means that they're practically indestructible as well. Really strong, really reliable, and just a load of fun, which is what you want when you're starting out. When you're starting out, you don't want anything that's complicated, fragile, difficult. Everything needs to be as easy as possible. That way, you're not going to have any kind of problem. So we've got the Crack Turbo Beaver, which is, well, looks kind of like that. See if you can show you that. That's on RC Factory. But I think there's another one that's the one I'm looking for. Now the Puddle Star, which could also be a good first one. Let's see. Here we are. Alright, it's actually called the Complete RC Set for Beginners. So there you go. If you go onto RC Factory website, you'll see that one, and it comes with, I believe, everything that you need, including a radio on either mode 1 or mode 2. Check with a local club which mode is most used around your area and try and stick to that. That way you're always going to have people around you that fly the same mode and can help you out with either maidening, trimming, testing, checking, and just having fun swapping radios around. It's always good to be able to be compatible with the rest of the people in your area. Okay, so what else we got? What are the questions? Hello from South Africa, Port Elizabeth. Hello, Dean. Leo, my friend from Israel, Leo Zahavi. I have a question. Well, when will you learn how to fly properly? Well, I'm waiting for an air show in Israel and an invite. Then you can teach me, so look forward to that. What do you prefer, Crack Pitts Mini or Crack Yak Mini, and why? Personally, I'm not a huge fan of biplanes. I tend to find that they're a bit more draggy than I prefer, and normally a little bit less agile. However, if you want a plane that will fly in really, really tight spaces, then something like the Pitts can be really good because it does fly a bit slower because it has that higher surface area on the wings. However, for me, as you can see by my choice, I went for the Mini. Let's see, we've got another one here from Ben. Martin, is there any difference when hovering a little indoor plane or a big nitro plane? I've tried hovering an indoor plane and I'm thinking of trying it with a bigger plane. Very good question. It is kind of easier with a foam plane because of the psychological behind it. You know that it's a foam plane, it's relatively cheap, and the chances are, even if you do bin it, it's not going to really damage it, and you're just going to be able to pick it up, launch it, maybe swap the prop and go again. So in that sense, it's easy to hover a foam plane. However, larger planes, the larger they are also very, very stable, to the point that they're as stable as the small ones. But of course, they are more expensive, which makes it complicated to actually get down low with them. And then you do have the other side, which is the torque from the propeller. Depending on the size and how big the propeller is and how big the model is, the torquiness of the engine and how stable you are on the throttle, well, you may find that it's a little bit harder because it's trying to spin a lot more than the foam planes do, which normally will sit there quite still. Let's see, what else we got? Hello everyone from Southern California. Hi Kevin, right back at you. Any recommendations for prop size or pitch for high altitude, 5,000 feet versus sea level? Well, at that kind of height, your engine's obviously going to be performing at less than peak, providing a lot less power than you would be at ground level. However, the answer to that does of course depend on what size model you're running, but you would normally want to reduce pitch or diameter in order to get the RPMs back up a little bit and try and keep the plane as light as possible, because it is going to be a bit of a brick otherwise. Carlos Paioletti. Hi from David, Luca and Carlos. Any tips for better hand launch, high performance electric planes wings? Again, another good question. Hand launching planes is something that you don't normally struggle with, providing the person who's launching it kind of knows what they're doing. I think we've all seen the videos, or even had it happen to us, where someone has offered to launch a model for you and then suddenly decide to throw it down or throw it up, or they kind of let go without letting you know. So I would say that more than performance tips on how to launch it, the best recommendation is find one person to launch it for you, teach them if necessary, and then stick with them. let the actual motor from the model do the flying. After all, you mentioned that they are high performance, so there should be no issues with the plane falling out the sky once it's released. So just have the motor do the pulling, and have whoever launches it just launch it in a nice flat, maybe 5 or 10 degrees up angle. Ethan Zollinger: what would you recommend as a good plane to improve 3D flying for a decent price? Well, you can have this one from RC Factory. I also really enjoy the Crack Yak. Both of them are planes which are relatively inexpensive, that fly really, really well, and they really, because they're so economic, you can have a few batteries for them. They fly anywhere, so there's no excuses, and you can get as much flying done as possible. The more flights you do, the more you'll learn, the better you'll get. The Crack Mini is one of those where, because it's a little bit smaller, it is more twitchy. So I would say this one's probably more of an advanced training. This is one that keeps even me on my toes sometimes, especially with the maxed out settings that I'm running on it. So I would say the slightly larger version of this, the Crack Yak, the backyard version, and then once you have that where you can do anything with it, then swap over to the Mini, which will get you shaking all over again. Eric from 3D Flight: is the J10 easy to fly, 3D and normal? Well, it's an unusual plane. I think the answer to that is actually probably closer to a no. It's a Delta, which means it flies very, very differently to any other jet that you're used to. So starting there, because it's a Delta, it's going to take a while getting used to it, to have it at a point where you feel comfortable flying it around, and particularly landing, just because of the way it drags its backside everywhere. Now, this one is actually harder to fly to a degree because it's so light. That means that if you're flying early in the morning, it flies great because there's no wind. However, as soon as there's some wind, it has a really huge rudder. The whole plane weighs nothing at all. I mean, I think it's about 10.5 kilos plus fuel, running a 22 kilo turbine. So the power is there, but it's so light that the wind can affect it a lot. And even with the gyros set to help you out, it's still fighting the wind. So is it an easy plane to fly? No, but it's a really, really fun plane to fly. With regards to 3D, I do think that of all the 3D planes that I've flown so far, it is the easiest one to 3D. So that kind of does offset the rest of the flying negatives. Classical Rock: would you ever come to South Africa, in Western Cape, in Langebaan Saldanha? We have a club called West Coast Flyers with 2 runways. Sounds brilliant. Send me an invite, I'd love to come. I've already been to South Africa twice with Terry's RC to see the Walker Bay Radio Flyers Club. Had a blast down there, even if it is a really, really long flight from up here. Aphie Twin: do you prefer flying 3D jets or 3D gases? That's, I would say both. There's no preference there really. Both of them get me shaking, which is kind of why I do this hobby. It keeps the blood pumping, gets the adrenaline going. Do I prefer one more than the other? No. 3D jets, 3D planes, anything fast, I just love them all. Power Drum: what turbine do you recommend for a Bobcat Composite? You're thinking about a 120. Honestly, it's been a while since I've seen those. I do think that does sound about right, but I'd need to check on that one, sorry. Roman: is it possible to add flaps on a Calmato Sport? Well, doing that would involve cutting the ailerons in half, adding extra servos to act as flaps, and then ideally probably setting up a mix on the radio so that all the servos act as ailerons, otherwise it's going to be sluggish. You shouldn't really need flaps on a Kalmato Sport. They fly really well to start with and they do slow down on their own. However, if you want to have it as a fun, just something to have really float about, I would probably recommend just having a look at using the ailerons as flaperons. So using the same ailerons and servos that you already have and just drop them both and keep them as one piece. You can do that on most computer radios really easily. If you like it, great, and if you don't, you can deactivate it from the switch. Easy. Let's see, Dude RC, you really love the laser, it's an amazing plane. Dude RC, I could not agree more. That's why when the first one met the dirt, I've built the second one. Just can't wait to get out there and actually maiden it. Model Airplane Nut, do I have any recommendations regarding retractable landing gear for smaller models? Well, any kind that I need landing gear retracts, I always go for Electron retracts, simply because I know they're not going to fail. So I would always stick to them if you can get them to fit. My friend from the quarantine challenge. Thanks for doing this. Rolling Harrier is tough, but I'm almost there. The problem is the last 90 degrees of the circle. This seems to be hardest to pull it through. Any tips? Well, I would probably say try maybe adding a little bit more elevator and rudder into it so that you're doing a steeper angle, high alpha rolling Harrier. That way the whole roll, because it's in a high alpha, the roll itself is going to be slower. Because it's slower, you're going to have a little bit more time to think what it is that you're doing. So try doing that, just a little bit more elevator, a little bit more rudder, and probably a little bit more power just to get that nose up. Keep the roll going, and then once you're getting round to that last 90 degrees that you're struggling with, start really thinking when you're giving the inputs. Whether you want it when the plane is level because you want it to go straight, whether you want to give it early because you want to turn that way if you're rolling right, or whether you want to give it late if you're rolling the other way. Kenrick P, thank you, you're welcome. Carlos Gutierrez, hi Martin, hope you're okay mate. Between the core and the new Futaba MZ, which one would you recommend? Okay Carlos, I take it you're talking about the latest Futaba 32MZ. Now, I got the chance to fly with this radio quite a lot in India at the end of last year, and it is a brilliant radio, just like the predecessor, the 18MZ was, and is. However, I do get the feeling when I was flying it that it isn't more than the 18MZ. Sure, it's got more channels, and it's got an extra display at the top. However, the programming, the menu, the options, and how it works are all identical to the 18MZ. So in that sense, I think it's a bit of a shame, and for that reason, and the extra functions, updates, and all the ability that the core has, I would say that between the Futaba 32 and the Powerbox core, it would have to be the core. Jahanzib, my good friend from Pakistan, is asking how I think the RC Factory Edge flies. Now, I have had a couple of flights on it and it flew really well. However, I had an issue with one of the servos, so I decided to change it out for MKS. I put MKS servos in the wings, which made a massive difference. So much so that I felt the need to upgrade the elevator and rudder as well. However, frustratingly, I'm still waiting to receive the last servo that hasn't arrived yet, in order to get it flying, do a proper test and a proper video. So that will be coming real soon, hopefully, if the servo ever arrives. Dean goes, you assume that I'm flying on mode 2, I assume flying on mode 2 is predominant worldwide. You fly mode 1 here in South Africa, but you're outnumbered. Yes, I would say that mode 2 is probably the most common. There are locations where mode 1 and even mode 4 are the be all and end all. Such as a lot in England, South Africa where you are, I think there are quite a few as well, and in Germany and Austria they use a lot of mode 4. However, worldwide, globally, I would say that mostly it is indeed mode 2. Anton L. Hey, did you get sponsored when buying the core radio, or did you buy it yourself? Well, unfortunately I never disclose my sponsorship deals, prices and so on. However, I will admit that I am a factory pilot for Powerbox systems, so a lot of people would probably say that my opinions are biased. However, I like to believe that because of the fortunate position that I find myself very lucky to be in, I do have the choice of which sponsors I go to and use, and the fact that I chose Powerbox really speaks for itself, and my opinions are therefore truly my own and not put in my mouth by the sponsors themselves. Hello from Germany, Janice Wagner. Hello my friend. Aditya Power. What advice do you give to start flying lower? That's the thing that makes your legs wobble while flying. That's the whole point though, right? If your legs are not wobbling, something isn't working. You need to get them shaking. That's never going to go away. It can be reduced to a point where you really enjoy it and love it. However, mostly that is something that isn't going to go away. Just get used to it. Get lower and lower. Don't try and get super low real quick. Just come down bit by bit and you'll soon get there. Now, give me a moment. I'm just going to block the guy who is filling the chat with rubbish, with spam. So that's all gone. And we're back to all the chats. Let's have a look. How are we doing? Stephen Walker. On your vector thrust jets, do you use a separate gyro for the control surfaces and the vector? Yes and no. Makes sense, right? Now, in my vector jets, which are currently my J10 and the Lizard which I'm building now, in the first one I use a Powerbox Mercury which has an iGyro inside, and in the Lizard we're going to be installing the new Powerbox Pioneer with the iGyro sat. Both of those have a 3-axis gyro integrated and can actually control both the airplane surfaces and also the vector thrust separately, and that's how I do it. So the flying surfaces always have the gyro on at their base level just to stop the wind, especially for the J10 as it's light, as we mentioned earlier, and the vector thrust is only turned on, the gyro for the vector thrust is only turned on for certain manoeuvres. The rest of the time the gyro is off, even though the vector I keep active throughout. Again, the reason for keeping the vector on throughout is that I don't want to find myself in the position of ever forgetting to flip the switch and finding myself in a hover without vector, which I've seen happen a few times, and it always ends really, really bad. So I'm okay maybe forgetting to put the gyro on, which would make it unstable, but it wouldn't mean a total loss of control. Let's have a look. Ace, why is there an orange missile in the background? Well, it isn't a missile, strictly speaking. It does have wings. However, at 400 something kilometers an hour, it may be confused by a missile. It's the Ultimatum jet. Check it out on my YouTube channel. It's an absolutely great flying plane. Love how quick it is, how agile and sporty it is. Haj Nabil. Hello Martin, I'm from Algeria. I have a Futaba 14SG. I would like to give me how much expo for dual rate and 3D. Depends on the model, but always start high so that on the first flight you're going to be comfortable with the expo, and you can always remove it. There's nothing worse than taking off with not enough expo and having to be really, really precise to the point of not being able to move the stick because it's too agile. So start with high expo and then just reduce it as you get more and more flights in. Okay guys, I'm trying to catch up with all the chat, but you're doing really well there. So I am getting there, just bear with me if you sent in a question in the last few minutes. We're almost there. Let's see, Carlos Paoletti. Hi Martin, again. What are the benefits to use satellite receiver compared to receiver only? And best regards from Florida. Well, that depends on which radio system you're using. Spectrum, of course, uses a system of a single receiver with a load of satellites. Futaba and Powerbox use their receivers only. However, when using a Powerbox, both of those systems use or can use multiple receivers, which at the end of the day are acting as satellites. So in that sense, I would say when using a Powerbox, there's no difference at all between using satellites or receivers, because they're both functioning the same. They're receiving signals, sending it to the Powerbox, and the Powerbox is doing all the business. If it's a single receiver, then the satellites in theory provide extra points for reference. However, my point of view is that the receiver should be good enough on its own without needing help from its friends, extra satellites, because if the receiver can fail, well, the satellite can fail as well. The receiver should be a standalone unit, but again, this is all my own personal opinion. Joshua FPV, hi from the Netherlands. You've been flying electric planes for 2 years and built your first gas plane, a 235 big lift, but you're scared of flying the big plane. Any tips? That's going to happen with your first large models. It's always going to be that, and the bigger the plane, the more it happens. Yes, you can control it, however, it's not going to go away. Just make sure that you've done a good job on the build, double check everything, have a friend check, make sure that everything works in the right direction, nothing binds, everything's charged, everything's working, do a range test, check the surfaces, CFG a couple of times, test the engine, basically remove any unnecessary chance of something going wrong. That should put your mind at ease that the plane is going to fly, it's going to fly well. It's then just up to you to fly it. If you don't feel comfortable doing that, normally there'll always be someone at your club with that bit more experience who can help you with that first couple of flights, or even do them for you. I can't tell you how many maidens I've done for other people. So don't be afraid to ask for some help. Normally anyone who's there will be happy to do a maiden for you and then hand the radio over with a plane that's flying half decently well at least. Arc, is there much difference between hovering a 32-inch to 24-inch foamy? No, in a foamy, hovering is basically hovering. The only difference can be depending on what pitch prop you have, how much torque it has, and whether it wants to torque roll. However, electric planes normally will sit still in a hover as opposed to a torque roll, so there's very little difference in that really. Hassan Kamel, is it easier to 3D with gasser than foamies? What is a good gasser start with? I mean 35 or 50cc, or what size do I recommend? Well, I've never been a fan of the 35cc size models. 50cc for me is kind of a really nice size. 100cc is ideal, that's my favourite by far. However, if for any reason, be it for storage, transport, or just price, you can't do a 100cc, definitely try and make that effort for a 50cc over a 35. The surface area on the wing multiplies exponentially, therefore it floats about a lot more, it flies really well. The 35cc's are normally still just that little bit heavier, a little bit twitchier, and the 50cc is normally equally as agile as the 35cc. So it has all the agility, but with the extra stability as well. So if you can, I would say always go for the 50 or 60cc as they are now, which are almost 70s. Racer 250, saludos desde Yecla, Murcia. Hombre, ¿cuánto tiempo? ¿Podrías hacer tutoriales de acrobacias? Sí, ese es el plan, pronto los iremos haciendo. Ahora cuando se pueda salir a la calle y volar, haremos algún tutorial. MTL FPV, what aircraft would you recommend for someone who wants to start flying jets? Well, as we said earlier, Boomerang Elan is a really great plane for that. The PickeringRC Dolphin is also really good because it's nice and light. And basically anything that has a really big surface area. Don't go for the scale jets, don't go for the jet that you actually really want, because normally it always ends in tears. Scale jets are a different animal, they are a bit heavier, they do land quicker than prop planes. You have to get used to using flaps and brakes and landing gears and everything. So do yourself a favour and do start with a kind of trainer jet and then move on once you've used and abused it to the jet that you actually wanted. Hi Theodore, welcome. As you said in your own message, you're late. Is there performance difference between different brands of gas motors? From Brian Bezaif. Yes, every engine is different. You'll find that some brands are very reliable but don't have any power at all. This is normally the case of engines like the Zenoa or even the DLAs. Both of those don't provide much power but are normally very smooth running, very reliable. Then you have the other end of the spectrum, like the GP engines, which could be considered a competition style engine because it is very powerful, very strong, and also very reliable. Sheikh Dawood, you bought a PickeringRC J10. You're now planning to make it a 3D version. So is it good to use a KingTech 210? Yeah, that is the engine that was used in the one that I saw in Dubai, and it could hover, it could pull out, it could do everything. My own opinion, however, KingTech normally doesn't produce quite the power that it says on the tin, from my own experience. So in that sense, just be a little bit aware of that, so build it as light as possible. Or if you can, install a JetCat 220, which aside from having on paper an extra kilo of push, it actually has, or it feels to have 2 or 3 kilos more than even it says it should. So you have great punch out whenever you need it, as I have in mine. Let's see, we've got some messages in Russian. Anyone who can speak Russian and wants to translate that for me, I'll answer the question. Otherwise, I'm going to pass. Matthew 38. You've never played with an EPP model and you don't have much space to fly. Is there any particular difference, for example, from an FMS S-Batch? Yes, the flat 3D models are massively different to the full body models that FMS normally produce, both in the way they fly, in the weight, in the amount of deflection you can get out of them, pretty much in every manner. If you don't have much space, you will be able to fly one of these where you wouldn't normally be able to fly something from FMS. So in that sense, go ahead, you've got no worries. You'll be able to hand launch it, catch it normally, and even if you can't catch it, they can come in super slow and just land it pretty much anywhere. Ben Yeep, do you know an aerobatic model that's around 2 meter wingspan for a good price and that won't break the bank? Well, this is kind of one of those awkward ones because when you start looking at the sort of lower end models, they normally do fly quite well. However, they are a little bit heavier, which makes them normally a little bit twitchier as well, which means they're not normally as much fun. So I would say, if you can, try and spend that little bit extra on the airframe, even if you have to then go with a cheapish engine and not top of the line servos. Providing the servos are strong enough not to break in flight, the lighter, better flying plane will compensate that more than if you have slightly better servos in an average plane. AgroRC, mi amigo Emilio, el distribuidor de GP en España además. En la intro de mis vídeos se me ve haciendo un agujero en la aleta del GP123. ¿Para qué son? ¿Agujeros de velocidad? Sí, igual que en los Simpsons. No, el agujero era para poder poner el tornillo que sujeta el sensor de temperatura del Spark Switch Pro de Powerbox, de forma que tengo en la emisora la telemetría de la temperatura del motor. De esta forma, si estás en un campeonato, un evento, una exhibición y haces lo típico de arrancar el motor y me voy al puesto de piloto, pues tú puedes ir probando el motor viendo no solo las RPM, sino también la temperatura. Todo esto sabiendo que hasta que no llegue el motor a la temperatura de despegue, no le das la orden de quien lo está aguantando de soltar el avión. Haj Nabil, hello Martin, from Algeria. I've answered that question already. Eric asks, how do I find the high-tech servo HSB9381TH? No idea, mate. Never used it. Back when I was using high-techs, I was on 7954s and 55s, but that was many years ago. I found MKS and enjoy using those simply because they're normally stronger and they last me a lot longer than most other brands of servos do. Renaud Buddington, what do you think about the Tomahawk Futura 2.5 as a first turbine jet? It is actually a good plane. It would be a good first jet as well, on the proviso that you have someone with you to help you build it and fly it the first few times. It's a plane that doesn't fly super fast, so it's a constant speed aerobatic model, so it does fly really well, it lands super easy. However, because of the way it's built, it does require some experts or some experience to get it built right, and then simply because of the investment, you definitely want to have someone there with you who has had some experience with jets before to do the maiden for you, hand it over to you in flight, and get you doing the right sequences for taking off, landing and everything else. You don't want to make a mess of a beautiful model like that. Air Guardian, you're late to the party. Yes, indeed. We just talked when you're thinking about what you were going to ask, so say the question. Awesome. More talk. Could I please make a video for setting the iGyro sat with the Powerbox receiver? Yes, yes, and tick yes. That is one that I'm actually planning, and as soon as I get the missing servo for my edge, once we get that video done, I'm actually going to be installing the iGyro sat into this plane so as it's easy to show you all how it works. So as soon as that servo comes, which I expect to be a week or two at tops, after all, quarantine is playing havoc here with shipments. As soon as that arrives, that video is coming out, followed straight away by the iGyro sat. So coming soon. Rick and boys, hello, welcome. Minology, hello. Jonathan. Greetings from Russia. Right back at you. I can't say your name though, unfortunately. Carlos, thanking me for the answer. You're welcome, my friend. Melv Parker, hello, welcome to the party. One of my Patreons. As we said earlier on, if you haven't checked out my Patreon account, feel free to do so. There's a link at the bottom of the video, and it is somewhere where I'm uploading behind the scenes, what's happening before it reaches social media, YouTube and everything else, as well as more direct contact and more questions answered directly to you as requested. Hiefling Klimblis, yeah, really good easy name that one, eh? Okay, will a multiplex twin jet fly with a 2.3 kilo flying weight powered by two 70mm 6S 3200 milliamp batteries? Maybe. Theo is asking me which crack yak do I recommend for the best stability overall, since you want to get into 3D? Nice one. I would go for the Crack Yak Backyard series. It's the one that I normally have sitting here. It's 80 centimeters. It's made out of 6mm hard foam EPP, so it flies really well. It's really strong. You can build it and fix it with normal cyano, and it's simply the best plane to get into 3D with. Let's see. Adia Power. Does a 50cc model require a power box? I think we actually answered this one last week as well on the other live video. 50cc models and a power box. Depends how you're going to fly it and what setup you have inside. I fatefully destroyed a beautiful 88-inch Extreme Flight Extra back in 2008, I would say it was, due to the receiver rebooting, because I had very big servos in it for back in the day, 8911s, JRs, and they were just pulling too much power out of the receiver. Now, depending on which radio you're using, some receivers still have that kind of issue, and the servos that we're using these days are even more powerful than the ones I was using back then. So, does a 50cc plane need a power box? I would go for yes, it does. At least put in something like the base log, which allows you 2 batteries and a stable power to the receiver. That way the receiver in theory could never turn off. However, ideally go with something like an Evolution. It isn't that much more considering the whole price of the plane, and it's going to give you peace of mind and extra security and stability in the voltage throughout. Not to mention you can then use it in a larger model if you then step up. Air Guardian, hello from Crimea, right back at you. Hello Raquel, let's see. Brian, thank you Martin for answering my questions. By the way, you're the reason I wanted to learn some 3D and got my 92-inch Pilot Extra. Such a fun challenge. Well, that's nice, thank you. I'm pleased to have inspired you a little bit to get into 3D. Hopefully you enjoy the Pilot RC Extra and you get to have some fun with it. Okay, I think we're going to start shutting it down now. We're going to answer the questions that were sent up to 9 o'clock and then finish it there. So a couple more minutes and we'll be good to go. So George Watts, you want a 1/3 scale BAE Hawk. Which manufacturers do you recommend? Well, the only ones that you can really get for that size and reliably, I would go for either the Calf Models version or the Tomahawk Paritech. Unfortunately, neither of those are cheap options. However, they are very strong and very safe options to go with, as well as being beautifully detailed, and they do fly really well because they're very light. Some manufacturers out there do produce them, however they're several kilos heavier, which you can really tell in flight or especially in landing. BAE Hawks are known for being a little bit delicate on landing. They land really slowly and really well. However, they have to start slowing down whilst losing altitude. If you get the nose up at all and stop losing altitude, so you continue the same height, they will go inverted very quickly, and that's even more so the heavier the plane is, so keep it light. Remo Buttington, you're very welcome, my friend. Matthew Going, do I have any DLGs? What's your opinion on the ELF? You've been looking at one ever since we saw it in flying you in South Africa. Yes, I have a Blaster 2. It flies really well. However, I'm actually looking to not necessarily replace it, but I am going to be getting an ELF in my hangar soon. It's one that I've been thinking about quite a lot recently, and I'm actually planning on bringing in a few, possibly even to sell on my online shop, PickeringRC.com, here in Spain. So yeah, an ELF is in my future. Theo, you're very welcome for the answer. Air Guardian, the question is how to use gyros on jets, but we already answered that, yes. Adya Power, what do you think of the MXS that I flew in India? That was the yellow one. It flew really well. However, it's the kind of style that kind of was available a few years ago. It flies really well, however it doesn't roll particularly quick, it doesn't elevate particularly quick, knife edges really well. It's kind of like the S-Batch. It's a really fun, easy to fly plane, however it isn't something like the slicks that are out now, which are a lot more agile. So, is it one that I enjoyed flying? Totally. Is it one that I would want in my hangar? Not particularly. Let's see. Harry Perderby. Hi from UK. Got my power box just before lockdown. Far better than my Jetty. Looking forward to seeing you do more demos on the power box gear. Keep up the good work. Harry, good to hear that you received the power box. Good to hear you got it just before lockdown. Hope you're enjoying it. Being able to enjoy the free time to figure it out, understand the programming. And yes, I agree with you entirely. And that takes us back, I think, to almost one of the first questions that we had. Jetty versus core. Core every time. Air Guardian. I'm not from Crimea. I was just translating the earlier comment in Russian by another guy. Sorry, mate. Air Guardian, where are you actually from? I see a lot of comments from you, but I'm not sure. Not sure if we've met maybe, or whereabouts are you from? Ophir Rahimin. Hi from France. We'll try to ask again. Pitts 73 with a GP 76 or 88 with the DLE 130. Ophir, if you can, always go for the larger one. It will fly better. And I think we've been here for an hour. We've answered a load of questions. I really need a drink. It is only water, I promise. There you go, proof. It is only water. But I've enjoyed myself. It's been interesting watching and seeing all of your questions and comments. I really hope that I've answered them all. I think I have. I've gone through the whole list. We will be doing another one of these sometime soon probably, so if we didn't answer yours, well, sorry about that, but we will do next time. Thank you all very much for watching. Remember to check out my Patreon account, which is down below. You can check out my online shop, PickeringRC.com. Make sure to subscribe. We're almost there at 10,000. We haven't made it yet. Guys, we're about, what, 20 people short of 10,000. Then we're going to have a big party. So anyone who's watching this right now and isn't subscribed yet, come on, hit that subscribe button. Do me a favor. It's free. It doesn't cost anything. It just means that you get notified when I upload a video. Now, coming soon, we have the next episode of The Lizard. All being well, that's going to be uploaded on Tuesday. I've just finished filming my video on the Spark Switch Pro, which is also going to be going up soon. So another tutorial. We have loads of fun with foamies, and normally when we're not locked in the house, we're out traveling the world, flying at huge air shows everywhere. So hit that subscribe button. You're not going to want to miss any of the content here. Do us all a favour, let's get to those 10,000. Have a quick check what everyone's saying. Everyone's subscribed. Great deal. Okay, well, that's about it. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all really, really soon. We'll just say the same again in Spanish. Muchas gracias a todos los que habéis venido a verlo. Si no estáis suscritos, dadle al botón. Es gratis y solo hace que veáis los próximos vídeos. Cuando yo subo un vídeo, si estáis suscritos, YouTube te avisa de que hay un vídeo nuevo. Pronto subimos el próximo vídeo del Lizard, tenemos el del Spark Switch Pro, el tutorial de cómo funciona, el Igirosat, el Edge, un montón de vídeos súper chulos, además de los eventos a los que acudimos normalmente cuando no estamos en cuarentena. Entonces, dale a suscribir, pasarse por mi página, mi tienda online, si queréis algo, sobre todo de Powerbox, podéis entrar en PickeringRC.com y ahí tenéis un montón de productos que os pueden servir y tenéis el asesoramiento y ayuda mío continuo para lo que haga falta. Y nada, pues espero que os haya gustado el vídeo, muchas gracias por quedarse y nos vemos muy pronto. Okay guys, that's a wrap for tonight. Stay safe, thank you all for watching, and we'll see you all really, really soon. Later!